Hey, this is a bit different from my usual videos, but I don't care because I want to talk about my favorite character in Marvel Rivals, Spider-Man. They can't see me. They can't see me. I am a Spider-Man main. And those are words that most people hate to hear. Not because they're thinking, oh no, the enemy team's backline is going to get destroyed, but rather because most Spider-Man mains are not good. Ah man, I wasn't quite able to get away in time. I love playing Spider-Man. I've played so much Spider-Man that I actually can't play anyone else. My aim and positioning is atrocious. If I choose any other character, I will be useless. Now, my original intention with this video was to complain about some of the issues that Spider-Man has and talk about how he needs a buff. I'm not really a part of that crowd anymore. I still think he needs a buff, just not as big of a buff as I thought. Like Brad Pitt buff, not Arnold Schwarzenegger buff. I hate Hawkeye, man. Like, admittedly, that was completely my fault, but Now, J. Jonah Jameson wants to know who Spider-Man is, but we need to talk about how Spider-Man is. What Spider-Man is. Spider-Man is an assassin. He has high mobility and high single target damage. He needs to be played with a guerrilla fighter type style to make sure you don't just dive in and die. What? Why are you alive? I'm in a really bad spot. He's a dive character. You swing in, get a kill, and swing out before the enemy even knows you were there. He excels at taking out high priority, low health targets. There we go. I don't get mogged, I mog. He has not only the highest skill ceiling in the game, but also the highest skill floor. Just to be able to play him in a regular game without throwing requires a significant amount of practice. Just to be able to utilize his movement properly requires changing multiple in-game settings to give you more control. Oh, I'm dead. So now that we know what type of character he is, why does Spider-Man need a buff? Well, there's really two reasons why. Let's very quickly go over his basic moveset first so that we can explain why he's not as strong as he should be. Spider-Man can web swing. Obviously. Spider-Man can punch. Not very hard, but he can punch. Also, if you double jump or leave a swing, you do a big overhead slam that does a little bit more damage. Spider-Man can shoot web cluster. These also don't do a lot of damage. It's so low that people actually don't realize they've been hit, but like they don't turn around when you hit them with this. If you hit an enemy that's been clustered, you do way more damage. You use these as your combo openers for almost everything. You're kind of useless without them. Spider-Man can uppercut. It's like a punch, but stronger in a bigger area of effect. Spider-Man can pull people towards him. Unless you hit them with a web cluster first, then you pull you towards them. Also, he can like run on walls and stuff, but yeah, no shit, he's Spider-Man. His entire kit is designed around getting in, dealing damage to one target, and then getting out. This is reason number one why he needs a buff. The problem is the amount of damage he does is abysmal compared to the output other characters can produce. For example, let's say there's a 250 health enemy you're targeting. Here's the most basic combo you can use to kill them in a reasonable time frame. Swing in, hit them with a web cluster, pull yourself towards them, uppercut, which does more damage because of the cluster, then punch and shoot another web cluster. Here's me using that in-game just to show the combo in action. Nice. If you were playing a different DPS, like, I don't know, Hawkeye, you look at them, shoot them in the head, and they die. It's so stupid. But what if they have 275 health or 300 health? What do you do then? That combo doesn't do enough damage to kill them. Here's a standard combo for dealing with 275 health enemies. Hit them with a web cluster, pull yourself in and uppercut. Now you have to hit them with a web cluster first and then punch, so the second cluster amplifies the damage of your punch. You can't do this one normally because it's like a quarter of a second slower, and that actually does make a huge difference, as opposed to Hawkeye, who shoots them once in the head and they die. Now you can actually get kind of fancy with your abilities to reduce the chance of your opponents hitting you. This is super useful against enemies like Mantis or Luna Snow that have stuns, or characters like Hela or Hawkeye that can deal a lot of damage if you approach them from one direction. One of these combos is using your web swing instead of using your pull to get over to them. In action, you hit them with a cluster, then web zip towards them and uppercut. Then you hit them with another cluster, now you pull yourself towards them and hit them with another uppercut or just a punch. As opposed to Hawkeye, who shoots them in the head and they die. Now, I know Hawkeye isn't the best example. He does have a stupid, and I do mean stupid, amount of damage from his arrows. Okay, you might have noticed I'm not very happy about Hawkeye. I don't know why he can one-shot people with basic attacks when no one else can, but even other characters are capable of outputting incredible damage in shorter time frames than Spider-Man without having to put themselves in danger. And what's really frustrating about this is that the combos that you use are very, very tight in their margins. The combo for 250 health characters does like 256 damage, which means if their healer even glances in your direction, then your target is not going to die. All of that effort, all of those cooldowns, wasted. There we go, and now I have to wait 3 years for my cooldowns to recover. I mentioned that the 275 health combo isn't used unless it's really needed because it's just a tiny bit slower. Well, because the speed of a combo is so incredibly important, people have found animation cancels to make Spider-Man a lot scarier. What are some of those animation cancels, I hear you ask? You're a little impatient, aren't you? There are two animation cancels that are really common on Spider-Man. The first is the plink. Now, plink is a term that was made a long time ago, but I have a feeling you don't actually care, so I'm just going to explain what this one is. You remember that overhead slam? Well, it kind of sucks. Its damage is great, and in the right situation is very useful, but it's really, really slow. So, people figured out how to make it faster. People figured out how to do the downward slam with one jump instead of two. How do you do that, Direwire? I'm getting to it. You jump, shoot out a web, and then cancel the web animation with a web cluster and immediately hit the melee button. It's 4 button inputs in about the span of half of a second, maybe less. The faster version of this is jump, shoot web at wall, and then hit the attack button. This one costs a web swing though, and you have to shoot your web at a wall that is higher than your head, so it's super situational. Suck it, Namor! Spider-Man is a fighting game character. They put a fighting game character into a hero shooter. These plinks let you use slightly faster combos in optimal situations, which is super useful because again, you need to do your damage faster than their healers can react, or else you're useless. Oh no, he managed to get healed a little bit. The other animation cancel is used for his mobility. Normally when you web zip across the ground, he does this little backflip animation and stops all of your momentum. But if you shoot a web cluster and then jump immediately after, he doesn't do that flip, keeps his momentum, and goes a lot further. This is great for getting out of sticky situations or just to leave after finishing a kill. Ooh. So now if you take all of that, put it together, and practice it for multiple hours, you get a character that is a nightmare for the enemy backline. A good Spider-Man is like the boogeyman. They won't know where you are or where you came from until they're watching the replay. If you see someone pick Spider-Man on your team, unless they have 3 trains of thought going through their head at the same time, it's more likely that they're going to do poorly than it is they're going to do well.
Zavala, I want you to know this is a good time to look in the mirror and realize that you're not a Spider-Man one trick, and you better learn another fucking champion, dude, because you threw this game and you're fucking reported.
A good Spider-Man can give so much value to their team, but most people aren't Tobey Maguire, they're Spooderman. And it's because he's really, really hard to play. And I don't want that to change. The fun from Spider-Man comes partly because he's hard to play. If he was easy, it wouldn't be as much fun. I just want the combos to be a little bit more rewarding. Reason number 2 Spider-Man needs a buff is because of his long cooldowns. This is the main cause of death for most Spider-Man. You go in and you can't get out because you didn't manage your web timers properly. Wait for more swings because just having one is just gonna cause me to die. That, however, is not the main issue in regards to his cooldowns. The biggest issue is that his cooldowns reduce his impact on the overall game. You need at least 2 web swings to even think about going into a fight. One to get in and one to get out. If you don't have that, you have to wait. If you miss your web clusters and run out, each of them takes 1.5 seconds to recharge, and most of your combos need at least 2 of them. So you wait. A lot. A lot. Okay, and I can't hit anything. And that is what makes Spider-Man hard. The combos are tough, sure, and getting kills can be rough as well, especially with good healers on the enemy team, but even if you are getting kills, if you want to win a game, you need to know not just how to kill, but who. Let's take a hypothetical to look into that a bit more. You're in a convoy match pushing the payload. Your 2 tanks are up front holding the point, one of your strategists is close behind them. Your fellow DPS is off at a good angle trying to deal some damage, and your other strategist is a bit further back but still at a good angle to heal your team. The enemy tanks are also up front fighting your tanks. They have one healer, the other is walking back from spawn after you sent them there 15 seconds ago. One of their DPS is poking away at your tanks while the other is about to dive your strategist. Who do you go for in this situation? Realistically, this isn't enough information to make the best decision. The baseline choice would be to hang back and take out the diving enemy DPS and protect your strategist. However, if the game's been going on long enough and you know your Mantis has been killing it with those sleep darts, you probably don't have to worry and she'll be able to take care of herself. In that situation, it's probably better to go after the active support to remove their healing for a moment. But if the enemy DPS is a Moon Knight that's 16 and 2 and has been decimating your team, it would be better to go after them instead. If the main issue on their team is a tank, well, you can't really do anything to tanks, at least not in this situation, but you can go after the strategist in this situation to remove their healing for a little while. Making these decisions in the heat of the moment is difficult, and that's what makes Spider-Man so hard. Forget the combos. Actually, don't forget the combos. The combos are hard too, but it doesn't matter how good you are at killing out of position enemies if you can't choose the right ones to go after. You can find 1,000 videos of people complaining about his lack of damage, and they're not really wrong, but there's a lot more to it. Rivals is a team game, so most of the time a character that can one-shot an enemy is too strong. It's going to tip the balance too much. And I would more or less be able to respect that if it weren't for the bullshit that Hawkeye can pull off. I know it's not easy to get a headshot, but it's not that hard either. So, here's how I think Spider-Man can be buffed just a little bit to make him more useful for his team. First, you gotta lower his cooldowns. Not by too much, but by a little bit. I think his web swings need to be on like a 4-second cooldown. That means he can go in and actually start attacking people a lot more frequently. The problem with this is he's going to be a lot harder to kill, which isn't super fair to other players. Still, I do think that it is necessary in order for him to have a larger impact on the game. His pull should also go down by 2 seconds to match, as should his uppercut. The big change would be to his web clusters. These things are so annoying. The 5 charges is okay, but with how slow they recharge, coupled with how easy it is to miss because of how slow they move, the web clusters are easily the most frustrating part of his kit. I cannot tell you the number of times I have missed all of my shots on these very slow moving projectiles and just stood there, feeling like an oaf, unable to do anything because I don't have clusters. It's something that's so easy to mess up, and it's an incredibly severe punishment for something so minor on other characters. So please, either lower his cooldown like crazy, or just let him reload normally. Please. Number 2, he needs a damage buff. There's no way to get around it. He doesn't need a big one. He shouldn't be able to just casually one-shot people because there shouldn't be anybody who can do that. Anybody. But he needs just a tiny bit more damage to make his dives a bit more successful on average. And he heals up to full. It's like I wasn't even there. Must have been the wind. There are a million ways they could do this, but the simplest way that I could think it could be done without making him unbearable to play against would be to double the damage of his web clusters. They only do 25 damage right now. Like I said, people don't turn around when you hit them with these. 50 isn't that much compared to characters like Hela or Winter Soldier, and again, he only has 5 of them, and they're not easy to land. All this would do is it would reduce his combos by 1 singular hit. Now, unfortunately, the data doesn't really reflect my thoughts on his need for a buff. Currently, Spider-Man has an above 50% win rate in every rank, except Bronze, but that's Bronze. Come on, Psylocke has a sub 50% win rate in Bronze, let's be real, it's Bronze. Admittedly, the win rates are generally about 0.5% above 50 in most ranks, but that's a lot better than Black Widow or Jeff. Why is Jeff so bad? Look at him. Look at him. He needs to be playable. I want to see more Jeffs, they're adorable. Also, I swear last week he had a sub 50% win rate in every rank. I don't know what happened, this video was a lot easier to defend when that was the case. I guess everybody just got a little bit better while I was making this. Anyway, I stand by the idea that he needs a little buff. He's my favorite character in the game. I am addicted to his movement. Playing anybody else feels way too slow and clunky. Currently, if you see someone pick him in ranked, you've got a 30-70 chance they're good, otherwise they're gonna go 3-13, mute everybody that asks them to swap, and lose your game. Anyway, keep a lookout for my next video where I play exclusively Spider-Man in ranked. Also, I've never played ranked in any game, not just this one, any game at all. So, I really hope I'm not the 70%.